Hello YouTube, this is Jonathan here. Gonna run a new Axis and Allies 1942 video. Today we're gonna be taking a look at the United States of America and its first turn. Now, because the US is the last country to go, there are a lot of things that can happen on the board in every theater. Europe, Asia, Pacific, Atlantic, that you're going to need to deal with. So instead of going over some specific movements, we're just going to be talking about concepts because no matter what assumptions we make about the board, it could look very different in your game. So there are a few things to consider though, just kind of overarching strategies. First, you're going to want to take a look at the naval situation in the Atlantic. What does the British Navy look like? What does the German Navy look like? What does your Navy look like? The Germans could very well attack your Navy and potentially destroy your destroyer and two transports. What is the situation? And then you're going to need to react to that in such a way, first things first, you're going to want to help England retake Africa, push the Germans out, which is going to lead to a landing in Morocco. Now, you're going to be wanting to pay close attention, not only to the Navy they have, but what Air Force do they have, predominantly if you're talking about fighters here in Western Europe, but keep an eye on that bomber as well. What can hit your Navy over here? And you want to make sure that you have enough surface ships to either survive that encounter or make it extremely costly for the Germans. Even if you lose, if you take out half their air force or more than half their air force in doing it, it could be a Pyrrhic victory for them, which could still work out fine for you. In an ideal situation, England would move its navy here if it has a small navy left, and then you would combine it with your navy to give better surface fleet or better protection against German forces. That may or may not be possible on your first turn. It just depends on how things look. You might need to take an extra turn to build up over here and wait for the British to build up and then combine the fleets. That might be a possibility. Now, do remember that you have this destroyer over here if you're focusing on Germany primarily, which is what I would recommend. I'll get more into that here in a little bit. Move this destroyer up here, if possible, on your turn. Or on your first turn. You can build more navy there if you do want to consolidate. Or if you want to ship those across and build another small navy. You can do that. Again, just make sure that you're protected over here. You do not want to move into a position where your fleet's easily going to be destroyed. You also will want to keep a lookout for the German Navy up here. Obviously, if it attacks you here, it's a direct concern, but it could be here, and because England may need that extra turn to build up, you might need that extra turn to build up, while postponing an attack on Germany is something we want to keep to a minimum. This first turn, since you have to build up anyway, isn't necessarily a bad time to try and destroy the German subs if they happen to be located there. And then on your next turn, everything can consolidate here or up here somewhere, depending on how things look. You do have a lot of production as the United States, but not a whole lot of units to start with, and you're not spread out too far like some of the other countries. So that's what I would focus on, general concepts over on the East Coast in the Atlantic. Now, in China, we do start with a handful of units. Japan is going to attack something. For sure, they should attack at least this, but depending on what else is going on, they might attack this. This is probably safe because it's got that extra fighter and for defense, and at most they can only send in an infantry and artillery in terms of ground forces. So you're probably good here. You probably are good here, but you might lose that. The issue is you can't really get additional forces over here. So what you're going to be tasked with, depending on what Japan does, is just slow them down as much as possible. Now, if England is moving in here from India, You may have an opportunity to coordinate with them. Um, you definitely are going to want to do that if you want to take any kind of offensive actions in this theater, because you do not have the forces to do it on your own unless Japan leaves itself wide open, which is great when it happens, but not something that you can count on. Also, do keep in mind that you do have this fighter here, and should Japan leave this transport or move a transport over here thinking that it's safe because the British attacked and killed what was there, and maybe Japan counterattacked, or did something. Maybe they attacked with fighters and then moved a transport in there. Who knows? But remember, you do have this fighter here, and 2, 3 spaces to get there. He can land down here if this is still in your hands. So just be aware of any lone transports. Again, Japan probably is not going to make that rookie mistake, but you do have that fighter. You might as well make good use of it. Now, your other major front is the Pacific over here. And you are in a position that Japan may or may not attack your fleet here. It isn't as lopsided in favor of Japan as it has been in some previous versions of this game, especially if England moved up here and successfully took out that sub. That's a buffer hit, if you will, that now they do not have. And your fighter defends better on defense, and you have a sub and they would not have a destroyer going in, so they may not attack you at all. So what you're going to want to do is consolidate your navy somewhere. If you want to start island hopping, you might pick up a few units, bring them down here to the Solomon Islands. You could also get to Wake, but that could leave you in range of a massive Japanese attacking force. So no matter where you go, no matter where you consolidate or which island you want to go to, if you want to island hop, always be aware of where the Japanese force is. Even if it's spread out, can they consolidate their entire force on your location? If so, but you have enough to fight them off successfully, then that's fine, it doesn't matter. But chances are, especially early in game, you are not going to have that advantage. So you want to just always be aware of where their ships are. Use what fighters you have to pick off any lone transports, just like we talked about over here. Get your carriers fully loaded with fighters if you want to do something over here in the Pacific. Right now you actually have 3 fighters and only 1 carrier, so it couldn't hurt to build an extra carrier on your turn. Now, consolidating your navy for more of a defensive posture is always a good thing over here, because if Japan is left alone, it could start doing really annoying things, and if left unchecked, annoying things can quickly become dangerous things. But if the Allies are going with a Japanese first strategy, so this requires that England is building up heavily down here, Russia's putting some pressure over here, then you might consider building up navy to try and attack Japan and knock Japan down. Generally, though, I've found in this game that going after Japan is not as effective as going all out against Germany. So my recommendation would be to consolidate the fleet, be a threat to Japan in your maneuvering, maybe maneuver your fleet with some transports somewhere where you can hit some of these islands that are worth a decent amount. But I wouldn't invest a whole lot over on this side of the world. There's not a whole lot of production to be gained. Japan is going to be moving this way, gaining production over here. Maybe eventually you can take out their fleet, but you're going to have to build up a few turns, and if they're building up their navy too, it'll be a few turns even beyond that. By that point, if Germany is doing halfway decent, it is really hammering into the Soviet Union, and you may not have the time to finally put the nail in the coffin and take out Japan before Moscow falls, unless all the Allies are going after Japan. So generally, I think that just going defensive and just trying to keep Japan in check, keep it from expanding too far this way or this way with its navy is good. If they start to move their navy around this way, yes, you can move in. You want to pin their navy down, but trying an all-out assault, devoting a lot of resources, I don't think is in your best interest or in the interest of the Allies as a whole. Instead, I would devote resources over here. I'd start by liberating Africa, get this production out of Germany's hands. Once you destroy their navy down here, unless they're devoting resources to rebuild it, they're not going to be able to take back Africa. And even if they should devote resources to a navy here, between you and England, you should be able to clear that out without too much of a hassle a few turns in. And then you and England, kind of tag team Germany and take territories that are weakest. So we're talking about Norway and Finland up here. You may need to shovel units into Russia to strengthen it, and that's fine if you need to do that. In fact, you should count on that being required at some point in the game, even if it's after you've taken Finland and then you're moving into here just so you can attack German territories up in the north, and that's fine. You should be prepared to do that. Eventually, when your fleets are strong enough on their own, you could have England threatening up north, the U.S. threatening down south. I've seen that strategy work pretty effectively a number of times. And so Germany pretty much has to defend everywhere, and Russia can be reinforced on its two major fronts in the north and in the south. And because it can produce as many units as it needs to, as long as it has the money, in Russia, the Soviets can devote their entire force, or a substantial portion of it anyway, to their central front, which is going to put them in a stabilizing position at the very least. And Germany is going to have to defend everywhere at the same time without production from Africa, without production from moving into the Soviets. Now they're in a position where they better hope that Japan is on the move. And at that point, I mean, it's kind of a race to Moscow, but the Allies can now move forces east if they need to, because they have that flexibility. So those are the things I would keep in mind as the United States. As with all the Allies, it's all about coordination. I'd recommend an attack on Germany, a focus over there, much like was historic. But I've also found it to be effective in different versions of Axis and Allies, and then just trying to pin Japan down, keep them from causing too much trouble until you've beaten down Germany, and then you can switch your focus. Again, just to clarify, that doesn't mean Germany has to be totally defeated, but you do want it beaten and basically scrunched in so you can slowly wear them down. And at that point, even if they aren't totally defeated, it's fine for America to devote its resources over to fight Japan, to start moving troops that maybe were over here, over this way, to try and put them in check, while the Soviets and England finally defeat Germany. But that is what I would recommend. Those are the strategies, just general concepts I would keep in mind when playing the United States in Axis and Allies 1942 2nd edition. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments or ideas for strategy, the U.S. is probably the country that I've played the least in different versions of Axis and Allies. So if you have any thoughts, any things you'd like to add to this strategy video, different ideas, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed this video.